Good evening and welcome to the Kim B. Davis Show. I'm your host, Kim B. Davis, and this evening I want to talk to you about feeling overwhelmed. Are you feeling overwhelmed? Because I know I am. I mean, we have Putin and Russia has invaded Ukraine, and I believe it's day 12, and we are watching continued escalations of war, and we're watching new types of bombs. I don't know about you. I didn't know that some of these things existed, like vacuum bombs. I didn't think that was real. We have school shootings, we have economic uncertainty, we have political divisions here in the United States, and it just seems like a lot. And here in the Midwest, the weather is starting to break. However, it hasn't really changed over to spring. And so we're still in that in between time where some days it's warm and then the next day it's cold. So we're in that cycle. But I want to talk to you about how do you deal with feeling overwhelmed? I know for me, for many years, I have struggled. I would often give in to those feelings of uncertainty and feeling overwhelmed and just worry myself and run myself on the hamster wheel until I collapsed, meaning it was time for bed. And I would start over the next day, and the same issues that I was struggling with the day before would continue to go on. I want us, and I've talked about this in 2022, to do better. And I'm specifically speaking to myself, but I'm also encouraging anyone who is struggling with feeling overwhelmed, being uncertain, or whatever it is that you're struggling with. Find something that brings you peace. Find something that allows you to relax. If it's reading the Bible, great. If it's reading a book, as you see, I have all these wonderful books behind me, and on the top shelf are all of my books. If creating stories is what helps you, if playing video games or board games or word games, if you're a Wordle fan, continue to do that if that brings you joy. But find something that can take your mind off of the craziness that's happening in our world. You know, on our show, we always talk about there's nothing new under the sun. And that's not something that I created or any of my guests. That's something that comes from the Bible. And for those that read the Bible or believe in the Bible, we know that everything that we are seeing is not new. These are things that have happened historically prior to our generation. Yet it still feels as if it's new. It feels as if this is the worst that has ever happened. And unfortunately, for those of us that did not grow up during World War II or World War I, I don't know that we really understand what a real world war feels like. And I know a lot of people have said, oh, you know, we're getting ready to go into World War III, and they're trying to prognosticate what's getting ready to happen. And people are just bracing for the worst. And I do believe that some of that may be accurate, not all of it. I'm not going to say that we're getting ready to go into World War III. I'm not getting ready to say that this is the worst thing that can happen. It is bad. We must send our prayers to the Ukrainian people. A terrible tragedy is being inflicted on them with Putin being a vile dictator and an autocrat who wants to reconstitute the Soviet Union. And as the Polish leadership said a few days ago, if you think he's going to stop at Ukraine, you are fooling yourselves. And eventually, that's what will lead to a world war if he continues on. Those are the similarities to World War I and World War II, where we see Germany when they, in World War I, when they went after Poland, and of course in World War II, when they continued their march on throughout Europe. We don't see that right now. But what we do see is someone who has decided that he needs to take another country because, as Putin has called it, he says, I'm denazifying Ukraine. Well, denazifying, to me, in my opinion, would indicate that the Nazis have returned. And the last time that we all checked, Zelensky, President Zelensky, is Jewish and has a fascinating story where his grandfather is a survivor of Nazi Germany. His three brothers were killed. He was the only one that survived, and Zelensky is his grandson. I think it is an amazing feat that Ukraine has held off Russia for as long as they have. I hope that they are able to defeat them, because this does speak to the balance of power in the world. Although we've had skirmishes throughout the Middle East, some things happening in Europe economically, typically for the last 20 or so years, we really haven't had any major issues. I grew up in the 80s and I remember airplane hijackings. I remember 9/11, of course, when it happened. I remember learning about the Soviet Union and why there was a Cold War in the first place. And I remember Mikhail Gorbachev saying that we're going to break up the USSR and allow countries to have their own freedoms. And here we are watching this reverse. I want you to pay attention to what's happening, but I also want you to keep in mind that as gas prices go up here in America, that we have to remember that sanctions do work. They take lots and lots and lots and lots of time. And we have to remember who's controlling the oil. This isn't just because of war. This is also because of politicians and corporations who are stacking profits versus doing what's best for the economy, doing what's best for people. I also want you to take time to love on yourselves, to take care of yourselves, because we have learned that when we have stress, whether it's COVID, because yes, we are still in a pandemic, whether it's dealing with COVID, dealing with mask mandates, if you are in an area that is struggling with high case rates, and across America, those cases are dropping. So that's a great thing. However, there are still some hot spots. So if you're in one of those spots, take care of yourself. One of the things that we've learned with COVID, it didn't matter if you were healthy, if you had an underlying condition, if you were obese, if you weren't sleeping, if you weren't eating well, if you had anything like heart disease, high blood pressure, diabetes, any of those things, they all could strengthen your body's connection to COVID, meaning, and I'm not saying this correctly, meaning that it could lessen your body's resistance. That's the word that I wanted to say, lessen your body's resistance to COVID and make things much worse than what it had to be. So I'm encouraging you, get out on a walk, go for a run, a bike ride, read a book, watch a good movie. There are some good movies that are coming out, and they're all not Marvel, because I know some people are not Marvel or DC, and I get that. However, there are some good movies that are coming out. Macbeth is out, Cyrano is out, and yes, I'm giving a nod to both of those. Those are two movies that I have not seen, but I do want to see, and I believe that they both will be very good. And you know, there are lots of things that are good that are happening in the world that we can pay attention to, along with keeping up with politically what's actually happening, but still being able to maintain our own health and well-being and mental well-being. One of the things that I am excited about right now, I have started paying attention to back to archaeology. Archaeology is something that I've always been crazy about. And there was a recent discovery where Shackleton's ship in Antarctica was just discovered. They found it in, I believe it's the Weddell Sea, and National Geographic is running several articles on it, and they're talking about the finds. If there is something, whether it's history, archaeology, science, whatever it is, indulge your creative passions, because those are the things that will fuel you. If you love travel, if you love cooking, if you love movies, music, whatever it is, find a way to indulge your passions. Get rid of your feelings of being overwhelmed. Get rid of your feelings of being worried. Worry will always be there. And there's a saying, worry just takes away the joy of today. You can't add another day to your life. You can't take away any minute of worrying. You're just going to sit there and worry. It's just the way that works. And once you've lost a day, guess what? We can't get it back. So if I spend a day worrying about so many things that's happening, and trust and believe, guys, I have kids in school, and one of the things that every parent in this country is worried about is gun violence. And my son's school had an issue a couple weeks ago with some violence. It wasn't gun violence, but we're concerned nevertheless. And if I sit every day and worry about that, even though I'm doing the other things that I'm doing, I'm not doing my children any good. I'm not doing myself any good, and I'm not doing my husband any good. And so I just want to encourage each and every person. There is help. There is hope. Pray if you believe in God. If you have passions that you haven't given into or decided to pursue because you don't think that you have the resources, you don't feel like you have the money or the time, figure it out. We figure out how to do everything else in our day. The least that we can do is figure out how to love on ourselves. It is 2022. I want us to love on ourselves the way that we love on our best friends, the way that we love on our children, the way that we love on our spouses, the people that you care about. Think about how they are important to you. And if you are not as important to yourself as these other people are, you need to rethink that, because you need to be just as important to yourselves as the other people that you take care of. You can't take care of people from an empty cup. So let's get our cups filled. Let's get them filled with positivity, with love, and with hope. And let's have a great and successful 2022. Again, if you're feeling overwhelmed and worried, reach out to someone. Every state, city, and county, pretty much in the United States, has some type of mental health service. If you are struggling, you can reach out to me at Bachelor Davis, BATCHELOR Davis, DAVIS, all one word, at gmail.com. And I'll give you a couple of referrals of some places that I have used, because even though I am on the Kim B. Davis Show as the host of the Kim B. Davis Show, I still struggle with things too, and trust and believe. Therapy is a wonderful thing, to have someone to listen to you and then give you options and solutions. It is absolutely wonderful. So take the time to take care of yourself, get healthy, healed, and whole so you can rock this year out. Thank you guys for tuning into the Kim B. Davis Show. You know, you can find me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, Snapchat, TikTok, everywhere there is social media. And that's Kimberly Bachelor Davis. That's BATCHELOR. You can see the show on youtube.com/Kimberly Bachelor Davis. You can hear the show on Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, and Google. And you can learn more about me as an author at KimBDavis.com. Thank you again for tuning in. I hope to see you on our next episode. And as always, remember, be magnificent.